A number of years ago, I was serving another congregation, St. Peter's in Conway, Arkansas. My mentor was a man named Dennis Campbell, and he was the canon for congregational something or other, which means he had to look after the young clergy who were disruptive and difficult. And that was the same year that Mel Gibson's movie, The Crucifixion, came out. Some of you remember that? Or you might have seen it. And it came out during Holy Week, I think intentionally. And so Dennis and I, in our relationship, enjoyed things. At the time, I used to see movies quite a bit. And we decided we would go on Good Friday together in between our two services that we had, and we would go see the movie. And it was this strange sort of thing to do because here we were, two clergy. We're in the midst of our holy season, leading services, and then we go to watch something that is sort of a Hollywoodification of the main part of the story, one of the main pieces of the story of Holy Week. And it was real disjointed because it was like going to any other movie. We weren't the only ones there, and you had to have the debate. Do you need popcorn and a drink for the crucifixion? People were lined up. Now, this is a day of fasting, so then I guess Diet Coke is okay because there's nothing in it. And so we kind of had this internal debate. I think each of us, I don't remember what we got, but I think one person got a Diet Coke, one person got water. We decided popcorn was a bit too much. And we took our seats in the movie theater along with probably 40 or 50 other people, including families with children. And then we watched the movie together. And you could hear the sound of others eating their popcorn and their nachos while we watched this cornerstone of our faith unfold in that interpretation. The movie has a power to it. It tells certain angles of the story. It's inventive, and it puts some extra things into the story that are not in Scripture. And maybe it's something that can touch you, and it can be there, but it's also quite gruesome and quite difficult and very violent to watch. Another night, I was having youth group on Wednesday night at the church that I was serving at, and I was in charge, and we were all gathered together, and it was the season of Lent, and we were almost upon Holy Week, and everybody was coming, and the kids were there, and one of the kids in the youth group decided, she was kind of this really cool, groovy person, decided that she had researched the crucifixion. And so she had the whole youth group before we had started sitting there, and she went through detail by detail by detail of exactly what physically was happening to Jesus on the cross. She was later going to go into medical sciences. She was curious and interested, and she had done the research. She got it all the way down to what was happening in his cells. And then they were talking, and she kind of looks over at me, and she goes, so I don't know what this is such a big deal about. I mean, that's just what happened to him. And she missed a piece of the story, which was about sin and redemption and all of this. Now, change themes just a minute. I'm going to put this all together in a few minutes. As a clergy person, I travel a lot, and whenever I get on an airplane, do you know those uncomfortable conversations you have with the people who sit next to you? You know, you sit down next to a complete stranger. And it's better now because we all have headphones and stuff like that. So you put your headphones in and you put your eye covers and you just go down. And you know that means probably they don't want to talk. That's usually a pretty good indication. But often you'll sit down and you kind of have this uncomfortable conversation. So, hi, where are you headed? Or, you know, sometimes you sit next to a chatty person. Sometimes you sit next to people who don't want to talk. Sometimes they're curious. Or sometimes, where are you headed? What are you doing? The longer the flight, the more likely a conversation is going to happen. And there's always a debate. Usually when I'm traveling, I don't wear my clergy collar. One, it's not all that comfortable to fly in. And there's other reasons too, but I often don't wear that. And sometimes in the conversation it comes up, so what do you do? And I always say the truth. You know, I'm clergy, I'm ordained priest. And I get kind of three different responses. One response is the conversation is over, and they don't really want to talk to me. And I don't know if it's my breath or if it's that I said I was a priest, but it's sort of something creeps that person out, right? They just don't want to kind of go there. They think I'm going to want to talk about the story, evangelize them, or they think, there's something else. The other response is I get a confession. And we will begin talking, and the person begins to tell me all the things that they've done wrong in their life. And I'm used to hearing confessions, and I'm always happy if somebody is in that midst. I mean, they don't do it formally, but if they're in the midst, I'm happy to listen and happy to be with them in those moments. Or I get a confession. Or the other conversation is about how I'm going to judge them or how they felt judged by the church or by someone. They begin with, well, I don't want you to judge me. Sometimes I get a but and they say a little bit, or they go through that, or that's their reaction. That third one is the most common, is a fear of judgment. And I think there's reasons for that when we look at the bigger world and the way the church is. And I'm talking the church, the big church, everybody. Part of the challenge is I think we do sometimes treat the story of Jesus like it's entertainment, like it's a movie, like it's a thing to have popcorn and a snack to. That's sort of different, right? You look at it, you listen to it, maybe you chat about it with your friends, but there's probably not too many movies that have formed the core of your identity or help you decide your ethics or decisions. I doubt you refer to the last movie you saw, maybe, I don't know, but I doubt it, that you're organizing your life and your faith and your understanding of the world and God and sin and redemption around any movie that you've seen recently. Or we think that the faith is about judging other people. We're looking for the sin in others, the brokenness in others, and we hone in on that vulnerability. We're good at that in society. Our young people, especially girls and also young boys, who enter the social media world are exposed to thousands upon thousands of images every day that tell them they are not perfect, they are less, they are not worthy, that they will not measure up. And they don't know they're being told that, but they're constantly being judged and measured up against a standard they can never attain. And it breaks us. So are the rest of us. And so then when we come in vulnerability to the church, we might find that same judgment, that same look to us that we're less than or not enough, or we're not going to measure up, or we're not perfect enough. And I think that's part of the risk of it, right? Part of the risk of the story of the crucifixion of the church is it's easier to judge somebody else than it is to look inside or to do the hard work. Rick Rubin, in his book on creativity, talks about this. When the work, meaning the work of our life, the work of our art, the work of our being, has 5 mistakes, it's not completed. But when it has 8 mistakes, it might be. He talks about this as a reality that in creativity or in producing or in making or in living out our life, that most of our brokenness, right, is where truth is discovered, is where beauty comes out. It's where we encounter the holy and we encounter the beautiful. Every person that Jesus encounters in the scriptures is not met with harsh judgment, but with grace and love. Every person that Jesus heals or encounters on the street or seeks to touch the hem of his garment or looks to be near him or seeks his healing comes to him in their brokenness and their frailness, in their pain, and finds healing and grace. Not judgment, but something real and hard and difficult. I think part of the beauty of Good Friday is that in Jesus as God, we proclaim his brokenness and his suffering as a key part of the story. Because Jesus then can know our pain and can know our reality. John Meacham writes, "We stand now at the cross in the moments of Jesus' greatest pain. May we bear in mind the central emotional truth of Good Friday, that our tradition grows from the most wrenching, mysterious, mystifying sacrifice imaginable, that of a parent's offering of his child and the love." That's a different place to think about. That it's central to us that we relate to God in this suffering, in this sacrifice of love. Why? But for our brokenness. That we might find healing and strength and beauty. We don't like pain, do we? How many of you have Tylenol or ibuprofen or Aleve or something else in your medicine cabinet, in your purse, in your pocket, available for right after the service? We're fortunate in the modern world. We have these amazing medicines that make life a little more tolerable. But in so much of the rest of our life, we're numb to some of the painful realities of our own brokenness and frailty, of that place where Jesus and where God might really meet us. What I always want to tell that person sitting next to me on the plane, and I've kind of learned how to say some things, is my first thought as a person, a clergy person or person of faith, is never about that person's weakness and their failings and their brokenness as if that should be judged. But it's always about how are they seeking God's love? How is God's love going to enter their life and their brokenness to bring them healing? How will it strengthen them? It's a different way to sort of come at it, but it changes things. Any person that I encounter in the world is someone that I can choose to love for their brokenness and their pain. Any person that I encounter in the world is someone that I can invite, like Jesus did, into their own wholeness out of the brokenness that they find. I can lift up, instead of that perfect image like we find on social media, the perfect life that everybody else is living, the perfect dinner, the perfect food, the perfect vacation, the happy friends, the exact right shape of body, all of that I can say and look at a person and say, you are worthy and beautiful and whole as God has made you. And that is part of the hope of the story. Jesus was there. His life had come to this point. He had triumphantly entered into Jerusalem to bring about the love of God. And there he was against all the forces of the world. The power of the Roman Empire, the power of the struggle. And he is, as the psalm says and as our reading says, he is dejected, scorned, cast out, hurt, and in pain and in suffering. But why? So that love can win. And love can heal. And that none of that brokenness, none of that reality and judgment, none of what the world has to offer, the power of Rome, can overcome that love and that healing and that power for each of us. And he knows our suffering and our pain and our reality. And we are beautiful and loved where we are right now. Amen.